I think it's important for us to keep concentrating on the issues that matter to Americans, like student loans and tuition, healthcare, all these other issues, things that mean something immediately to American people. Impeachment is important, but the way it is covered, the incompetence of the media, the incompetence of those Democrats who are placed on TV, except for a few, as we were going to see one. Chuck Todd today got owned by Rand Paul. And amazingly, right after that, the Democrat that got interviewed did a good job of respectfully calling out Chuck Todd. But man, was it clear. Check this out.
And joining me now from Bowling Green, Kentucky is Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Have you been reading the transcripts that they've been released?
My impression so far is I think the American people want fairness, and I don't think they're going to judge fairness when they're accusing President Trump of the same thing Joe Biden did, threatening the aid if some kind of corruption's not investigated. It seems like everybody, both parties, have been threatening aid if some kind of investigation either doesn't happen or is ended.
I want to set aside what Vice President Biden. Is it appropriate for the President of the United States to have engaged in this?
I think there's a real question whether you think the president should specifically go after one person, but there's a real question whether Joe Biden should have gone after one prosecutor. But if it were me, I wouldn't give them the aid because we don't have the money. We have to actually borrow the money from China to send it to Ukraine.
Do two wrongs make a right? I don't understand why that's always used as a deflection.
Foreign aid, by law, can only go out to countries that are not corrupt.
Do you believe there should be a distinction between whether people in the administration ask for a quid pro quo and whether if they're...
I think we've gotten lost in this whole idea of quid pro quo, and I think Senator Kennedy kind of hit the nail on the head, is that if you're not allowed to give aid to people who are corrupt, there's always contingencies on aid.
If you're the average American citizen watching this, should you be concerned that the President of the United States wanted a foreign government to help investigate a political rival? Do you understand why some people think that that's abusing the office for political gain?
Yeah, I think you're right, Chuck, but I think an equal number of people are upset that Hillary Clinton hired a British spy to hire Russians to get dirt called the Steele dossier.
You did it again. You went back and said, okay, there's behavior that's bad over here, there's behavior that's bad over there. All that does is condition us for more bad behavior. When do we put a stop to it?
But all I'm saying is that you're going to impeach President Trump and you're going to give Hillary Clinton, let her skate. It becomes partisan. That's why no Republicans voted for impeachment.
Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, thank you for coming on. And joining me now from Stamford, Connecticut is Democratic Congressman Jim Himes. Welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good morning, Chuck.
Will there be new information the public learns from these public hearings on Wednesday morning?
There will be new information. They are going to hear immensely patriotic, beautifully articulate people telling the story of a president who extorted a vulnerable country by holding up military aid. They are going to hear something new. And Chuck, if you'll grant me 1 second here, my head is only now decombusting from the exchange you had with Rand Paul. I've spent 11 years in public service defending the press. And when Senator Rand Paul comes on and says that what Donald Trump did, and the transcript is there, extorting a foreign government for his personal political gain, and that's exactly the same thing as Joe Biden, exactly the same thing is what he said, as Joe Biden saying that this prosecutor should be released. When Joe Biden is acting in consistency with American foreign policy, and back then we had a whole list of things that had to be done, and this was American foreign policy, it was European Union policy, it was IMF policy, that this prosecutor needed to go. When Rand Paul says that that's exactly the same thing as the President of the United States saying you need to find dirt on my political opponent, and with all due respect, Chuck, when you say, well, do two wrongs make a right? Let's be very clear. The President of the United States demanding, extorting a vulnerable country to do his political bidding, to go after his opponent, has nothing to do with Joe Biden executing the foreign policy of the United States or Hillary Clinton, who is a private citizen, doing opposition research on her presidential opponent. Those are radically different things, and what the president did is wrong and impeachable.
Now, that is the way it is done. Exactly what Jim Himes did is what Chuck Todd should have done. Not only blown apart the false equivalencies, but use his own research capabilities to go against many things that Rand Paul said. When Rand Paul says we are borrowing from China to give assistance to Ukraine, money that we don't have, why didn't Chuck come in and say, well, didn't you borrow from China to give the tax cuts that you gave to the wealthy people? Didn't you borrow from China to pass many of the bills that you Republicans passed that were unfunded? It's amazing that you don't push back so that you can inform the American citizens. What you have there is the channel, the Meet the Press Congress was pretty much used as a propaganda agent of the Republican Party, and unrefuted, it then becomes the new truth that most Americans are going to see. And that is one of the issues why you would not see any kind of bumps in the impeachment. People are going to stay in their corners because there's no reason for them to move, because they do not see the absolute differences between what have occurred to make what Trump's done an impeachable offense.